welcome to Newsmaker Live. Thank you very much for joining us for this program. It's a pleasure to be in your company tonight, like all other nights, every Wednesday, 8:30 DBS. Yes, it's Newsmaker Live. This evening, we have a very interesting topic that we want to discuss with you and with our very special guest. He is not new to our set. He is no stranger, but he has not made an appearance in a very long time, and I'm talking about the Director of Corrections, Mr. Hilary Herman. Mr. Herman, thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Newsmaker Live. It's always a pleasure having you on here and speaking with you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And it's a special occasion for you as well, because this week you have been hosting your colleagues from the region in a regional conference. I want to talk about that and some other issues relating to corrections in the Caribbean, but more specifically on the island. So let's get into your conference first of all. You're hosting this conference, and it is not something that you had planned to host initially, but because of some unfortunate circumstances, St. Lucia had to take up the slack, and St. Lucia is hosting that very important regional conference. Tell me about it.
Okay, it's our 7th annual conference of the Association of Corrections and Prison Association. It was scheduled for Jamaica this year, and about 5 weeks ago Jamaica called and said they were unable to host it. So as president, it obviously defaulted to St. Lucia, so we took it and run with it. And it has been very successful so far.
Now, you said 5 weeks. I could imagine that 5 weeks to organize a major conference like this one would take a lot of hair pulling out and that kind of thing, and you have no hair to pull out. So how did you manage to get...
Well, I was able to do it with a lot of assistance. Had some good assistance from some of our partners, like the Association Black in Corrections. I'm sorry, the Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice from the United States, and they assisted in the funding and a lot of the just organization of it.
Now let's go into a little detail of the 7th annual conference and also business meeting for 2013, and this is the first time St. Lucia has hosted this conference, even though it was on short notice. What exactly is the association about that Caribbean association?
Well, it's a professional organization. The intent is to help professionalize our regional corrections, and for so long, as you know, our corrections have always looked at prison officers, and we're always the stepchild of the criminal justice system. And what we've aimed to do is to professionalize our staff and the leaders, the management of corrections and prison services throughout the region. And our association seek to lobby the politicians, set agendas for legislative changes, and just to professionalize our service.
Now, this week's conference, I'm sure there are a number of issues that affect correctional services throughout the region, almost the same way. What are some of the major issues that you discussed this week, and some of the recommendations coming out of your meeting so far?
Well, as you know, the region, one of the things that we all suffer from is overcrowdedness, for one thing. We're all busting at the seams. One of the major things that we know we need is that's lacking throughout the region is alternative sentencing. And so these are some of the areas that we have to look at, reducing the number of people that we have coming, particularly the offenders who are, those are minor offenses that are coming to our prisons.
And we see a lot of that in our jurisdiction. What are some of the alternatives that have been proposed, and some that can work, given our laws and stuff?
Of course, community service, and I think over the last 2 budget cycles, I think you've heard Minister has mentioned the introduction of electronic bracelets and those kind of electronic monitoring, and so this is one of the ways that we would go.
And is that a pipe dream for us, or is it something that is really realistic given our environment, given the fact that we talk a lot and very little comes out of it, or it does not come out for a very long time?
Well, unfortunately, we cannot stop talking. We have to dream, we have to and we have to pretty much infuse, try to get the people who have the authority to do that, the legislators, the ministers to buy into our program and help us, alleviate some of the problems that we have.
Now, talk about the camaraderie and the ability to bounce ideas off each other. You're in the same business, but I'm sure that there are unique challenges that each of you face, and some of them, if you consider, can present some options for making a better prison service, here and your colleagues, where they come from.
Well, I think in the region, most of us have the same problems. Most of us have the same, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our member states have older prisons and they need to be upgraded. Lack of professionalized training for our staff, legislative changes that's required. Most of us are still being governed under old regulations that needs to be updated to match our new philosophies. So we all work under the same issues, the same restrictions, the same problems.
Now, you have had a number of presenters who have come in to train, to speak, to just kind of give you a boost, I would say, because you're speaking to the converted already,
yes,
because you know what the issues are. Tell me about some of the presenters that you've had and their sort of input into what has been going on for this week.
Okay, we give you a copy of our book. Most of our presenters are professional corrections folks, and they came from a wide background. Most of them have had corrections careers for spanning over 30 years, and most of them have been there, most of them have been on the ground, and most of them can relate to everything corrections. And our staff was able to sit in for 2 days now and go through several workshops and got a whole lot out of it.
Talking about the staff, I mean, this is an opportunity that the staff were able to get because of the unfortunate situation with Jamaica not being able to host the conference anymore.
Or the fortunate.
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate for Jamaica, but fortunate for us, because now that the conference is here, correctional officers have been able to participate in the program. Tell me about their participation and what they're getting out of it.
Well, it is, as you mentioned, it's our first official conference here, and the host nation gets the benefit of the training workshops. So we were able to get a good, I would say 70% of our staff down to the gatees to actually sit through those workshops, and the staff was very thankful for it. Initially I thought they would be resistant, but they came in, they were very happy to get it, and it was good.
I mean, this is something we were talking about earlier on, different demonstrations that you had and different presenters or businesses presenting their offerings, of course at a price.
Yes.
And one of them, we were discussing before we came on air, very, very scary indeed, this little box that you're talking about, and able to pick up cell phone signals, not only signals, but able to identify mobile phones within a particular locale. Tell me a bit about that, because I'm sure the viewers would find that very interesting, and probably, as I did, very scary as well.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you, we can't afford it. I'll tell you right up front, we can't afford it. It was very nice equipment, and it have the capabilities were great. I mean, it's the first time we were able to see what this kind of equipment does. And as you know, it is a worldwide problem with mobile phones in prisons. It's not only St. Lucia. We know we have the problem in St. Lucia, but most prisons have the same problem. And I know your news always shows the amount of cell phones we get at Bordelais. This equipment was able to identify phones. They can find them, they can identify them, they can turn them on, turn them off. Very, very, very impressive equipment.
But as you said, we can't afford it. I mean, how useful would that be? I don't know. Probably you can talk about that a little, going into our local situation, our local context. How great of a priority is it for you as the Director of Corrections to ensure that cell phones do not end up in the hands of prisoners? Because we know that they do, and in large numbers, and they're used. Everyone knows that they're used widely in the prisons.
Well, I think in my opinion, I think it's really a losing battle. I just think we hope that someday we could actually provide inmates with cell phone, because it's a problem that, as you know, it's on the news all the time with the amount of cell phones that we get. I don't know that it's a battle that we'll ever win. So I think we hope that someday we can get to a point where mobile phones is just not an issue. And I don't know how we'll get to that yet, but I hope that that's not, it's not one of our major priorities.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I admire about you, notwithstanding the laws on the books, and the restrictions that are in place. You're a more practical individual, and someone else might have told me, well, yes, it's one of our priorities, and we're working hard at it. But speak a little bit more about that you'd hope to see that cell phones can be used within the prison system. Tell me why you say that, and in what sort of situational environment?
Well, because we know that it's a small percentage of inmates that really use the phone for criminal activity. We know it's most,
and you know those as well. Who they
sure
are.
We do. Most inmates are just trying to reach home, trying to call their family. So we know that it's a mix. So I don't see it as a major issue, with the exception of the ones that are using for criminal activity. So it's up to us to now find out who those are and try to get them out of our system.
Well, we're speaking here with Mr. Hilary Herman, Director of Corrections on St. Lucia. We'll take our first break on Newsmaker Live. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll discuss a number of issues facing the prisons, some of them in the news very recently. Don't go away.